Thank you for the smattering.
Yes.
As I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, this kind of got thrown together very quickly. So we do appreciate you guys coming out. This is Retrogame Roadshow, the very first ever at Portland Retro Gaming Expo. We've been doing this at Penny Arcade Expo for a couple of years, basically just sort of doing, imagining what Antiques Roadshow would be like if it were all just old video games. And I think this is going to be a little different than doing it at PAX, because PAX is more of a general audience, and you can surprise them with anything. Like somebody will bring up a copy of Bubble Bobble Part 2, and we'll just be like, this is worth $200, and the whole audience is like, fainting, you know. But you guys are more expert level, so what we were just hoping to do is bring up a few of you guys, if you bought some stuff at the show and want to talk about it. Who's brought items that they would like to talk about with us? One person. So one person. Two people. Three people. No. Seriously, I mean,
Electronic Arts Genesis game. It's probably worth $1. Oh,
yeah, no, totally. Well, I mean, again, what we're going to try to do is kind of, talk about the items that you've purchased or that you've brought with you, and try to use that as an entryway into more, general discussions of trends that are going on right now in terms of the collectability of video games, and hopefully, leave you guys with some interesting insight. My name is Chris Kohler. I'm the editor of the video game section of Wired, and a crazy person about collecting video games. I spend too much money on them. Here we have two other esteemed panelists who will introduce themselves.
So I'm Steve Lynn. I'm the general manager of GRE Canada, and I'm also a crazy collector, not only console but arcade and pinball as well.
John Hancock, pretty much focused complete set collector US, and pretty much currently have 21 complete US collections US.
So during all of this, I mean, if you guys have questions that you want to ask, I mean, basically at this point, I'm gonna turn it over to you guys and ask who either wants to talk about a game that they've brought, who wants to ask a question about collecting, who wants to make a declarative statement about collecting, and just sort of get a dialogue going. So who among you wishes to speak? Yes, right. You, sir. Okay, you've been... No. Come up here.
Come and join us.
Come join us.
Yeah.
There's stairs on the left-hand side. Because the thing is, if you're sitting down there, everybody in back of you cannot hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we have an ethereal item, right?
Yeah, I didn't know this was happening. So
it's cool. Well, what's your name? Where are you from?
My name's Ryan. I'm from here.
You live in the convention center?
Yes.
Are you the phantom of the convention center?
You guessed my secret identity. I must now destroy.
Instead of an organ, it's a piano. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Kryptonite.
Yeah.
So you're homeless,
Okay.
is what you're saying.
So at home, I have a copy of Star Tropics. Okay. In box with the letter undunked, still attached to the manual. So good as new. It's not sealed. Very rarely played, but I'm wondering if because the letter is still attached, unused, if that would add to the value.
Well, it definitely adds to the value. I mean, anything on the NES side, one of the things that's becoming more important on NES collecting, especially complete in box and complete with manual, is the condition, and that makes the value vary wildly. By a couple $100. I know, Chris, if you want to talk about Star Tropics specifically.
Well, so Star Tropics, I mean, Nintendo made a whole lot of Star Tropics and a whole lot of Zoda's Revenge, and so even into the PlayStation 1 era, you could actually go to Toys R Us and buy them sealed for like $10-20. Yeah. So the problem, so Star Tropics and Zoda's Revenge are kind of they're kind of easy to find in really mint condition, as it turns out. It does affect the value, but for that particular game, there's really a lot of them out there that are in like super mint or sealed condition. Not to make you sad or anything like that, but yeah. But it's good that it's in that shape, that the letter, because that letter. Now, what is the deal with that letter? If you immersed it in water or something like that.
You have to immerse it. So there comes a point in the game where to turn on a submarine, you have to look at this letter from your uncle.
Yeah. And
you have to submerge it in water, submerge the letter to make the access code appear.
Yes. Yeah. And it's copy protection, basically. It was to make sure that people didn't, and not only was it copy protection, it was like blockbuster protection. and mom and pop video store protection, because this was the point where Nintendo, they didn't actually want stores renting games. They were not happy with that.
So, yeah, I mean,
Eventually, they released the Virtual Boy, and they that was when they just sort of discovered, like, oh, this will be the only possible way for people to try it, so we'll let people rent it.
well, I guess maybe kind of along the same lines, there's a couple NES games that have things like extra maps and everything that are worth a lot. So Section Z with the map, and the one thing with Section Z is someone actually reprinted some of those maps, so be careful. So that's a pretty easy one. Turtles 2 has the free pizza coupon on the back of the manual, which is way expired, by the way. Like, you can't bring it to a pizza. Although, actually, if I worked in a Pizza Hut and someone came up to me with that, I would probably give them a free pizza.
And you got like the Dragon Warriors and the Final Fantasies that have this redonkulous amount of paperwork and materials, and the condition matters in those, because a lot of people, they use that stuff to play the game. So usually when you get a used copy, it's like taped and tattered and piecemeal together. So to find one that's either unopened or really crisp and nice, it increases the value.
And I only just found this out. My copy of Dragon Warrior 2 has 2 maps in it, and what I did not even know until recently when I saw someone selling one, is one of the maps for Dragon Warrior 2 was mail away only. You had to mail in a coupon to get this free map. And so your Dragon Warrior 2 might actually have a rare mail away map in it. Also, Faria. If you've got a map in your copy of Faria for the NES, that may be a rare mail-away map as well. So even if you might think you know what you have, but you may not actually know. You might need to go look that up.
Yeah. So as NES has been rising in value, it's definitely one of those things where completists are now starting to document everything that was in the box and everything that was mail away. So especially on the higher end, take a look at what's there. Some people count the warranty card, even though it's kind of the same thing. And then Koei's got all the maps, like Nobunaga.
I was going to ask, do little things like I have a copy of ActRaiser in box with everything, and it's still got like the sign up for Nintendo Power. Do little things like that, or are those? I mean, those
Yes.
were in everything. Or
It doesn't add a ton of value, but Rick Weiss and I, we call those goodies. And I'm a CIB collector, so the goodies is nice to have, but I don't necessarily have it for all my games. But it's really nice to have the bag and all the extra warranty card, like to subscribe to Nintendo Power. For some games, especially that third-party stuff, it's more uncommon, and so to have that extra stuff does increase the value to a particular collector.
Yeah, there aren't enough people out there who really, really want all that stuff to raise the value up too much, but that could change. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for coming up.
I have this thing called Stadium Events.
Yeah.
It's worthless. I'll give you $10.
It's worthless.
Yeah.
You know what? We burn them for fun.
Who's next? Who wants to talk about stuff? This guy was super excited.
Yes.
You, ma'am, in the front row with your video game. We'll get to you second, sir, with your Final Fantasy NES T-shirt. That's nice.
All right, so
Genesis.
so Genesis game. I'm gonna have John just take this over.
What you got? Who are you? Where are you from?
Alright, so my name is Alexandra, and I live in Lebanon, Oregon.
Okay.
Cool.
Big fan of Chris over here.
Oh.
Wow. Full collection of toenail clippings and sweat.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
I got his hair.
I win the Expo.
Yeah.
So I do have a collection of games. Generally, I just go for mint RPGs. It hasn't been something that I've sought out. It's just something that has happened over the years. I just take good care of my games. But every Expo, I just kind of find myself buying obscure Genesis games from my youth. Last year it was Crystal Pony Adventure, simply because I had the Sega Channel, and it was the only game that worked on the Sega Channel for me, besides Dr. Robotnik's Yeah, so I kind of paid for that, and it went nowhere. But this year it's the Fairy Tale Adventure, which I kind of have a love-hate relationship with, because it was, I don't know, really hard and had kind of oppressive music and that big open world, and I don't know, I kept coming back to it and renting it. Yeah, and now I own it.
Nice.
All right.
And I got it for half off because I told them nobody would buy it except for me. So.
This is a bargaining technique that I've now heard of twice at this show. Somebody was telling me that he will do this. He will go up to somebody and say, I'll give you, if something is $10, be like, I'll give you $5 for this. but I'm the only one who's going to buy it. So really, I'm going to give
Mostly
you 3.
works for Sega, not Nintendo.
Yes.
Right, yeah, true.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, right? So Sega Genesis games,
Yes.
because people generally saved the box and instructions because they were made out of hard plastic, that's what collectors are looking for, which has caused cartridge-only prices of Genesis to be very, very low.
Yeah, do you want to talk about Fairy Tale Adventures here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, huge Sega fan. Love Sega. And the Genesis, I compare it to in television, how the television is to the Atari. And for collecting. There are games that are sought after and collected for. But for some reason, the Genesis collector fan base is significantly smaller in general to Nintendo. And it's nothing against Sega, like a huge Sega collector. So, to add to what Chris said, loose Genesis games, and this is for the gamers out there, are cheap to get because a lot of people did collect them in the case, keep the case. The manuals are harder to find. Electronic Arts at the time, they had tree killing manuals. I mean, they were like almost the size of books, especially for Fairy Tale.
Was it Star Control? Has that like
Star Control,
Carmen San Diego like book
Yeah,
inside it basically?
yeah, Star Control, Starflight. You're thinking
No,
of
Starflight. Yeah.
And so I would say, the value of a loose, even an RPG Genesis game is fairly cheap, and like I said, you got a good deal on it. I don't know if it's significantly worth more than say 10. It's an RPG, so it has some value, but because it's loose and it's got looks like a couple stickers on it, that's what I would give it. That's what I pay for.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, if you don't want to pay that much for collectible games, like cartridge-only Genesis is a great way to go. Like one of the rarest Genesis games I saw, somebody had a Crusader of Senti, and it's like, they're selling it for $50.
Wait. So is Crusader of Senti actually worth something?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Because I
Yes.
bought that on Game Player's recommendation, but
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they didn't play through the entire game because it was not Zelda for the Genesis.
Oh, is that what they told you?
I'm sorry, and I
This is
paid
the Zelda for the Genesis.
If somebody ever tells you it's the
$99
Zelda for the
it
Genesis.
when I was
Is anything the Zelda?
Sorry, what did you pay for it?
Only Zelda is the Zelda.
It was $99 at Toys R Us, and I convinced
Wow.
my parents
Oh.
that it was all I wanted for Christmas that year, and then
Now,
was incredibly disappointed.
Now you said okay, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see where we go with this. Did you save, you said you were totally, you saved everything mint condition when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Is that Crusader of Senti box still in
Yeah,
really
with
good
the,
shape?
With the instruction manual.
Okay, that is the hardest Genesis box to find for the U.S. because it's cardboard,
My
right?
final box.
And condition on that, because it's so hard to find, is a really mint condition box can actually go much higher than one that's in more beat up condition. I know of one, I think that, it's kind of like complete in the box, but the box was kind of messed up that sold for like $200. Yours is probably, if it's like, depending on condition, it might be worth even more than that, maybe into the $300 range to the right collector.
So, now you can tell your parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, triple the value.
Tripled
over
your money.
20 years.
Of course, actually with
Wait a
inflation,
minute.
yeah.
Yeah.
I never would have thought of that.
There you go.
So if you still have it, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So there you go, hidden treasure.
Wow.
Yep,
Yeah.
keep it in nice shape.
Well, thank you guys.
No problem. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you
Great.
for coming.
Who's next? You in the Final Fantasy shirt. Come on up here. So, again, if you're just joining us, if you're just tuning in, you don't have to have a game. You don't have to have brought something. If you just have a question, or even if it's not a question, but just a statement,
Yeah.
sort of a,
You want to punch one of us? I don't know.
Yeah. If you want to convert us to your particular religion.
Yes. All right.
Go on. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your name? Where are you from?
James, and I'm from Sacramento.
Nice.
Cool.
From
Area.
California?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I collect mostly CIB NES stuff,
Awesome.
and I buy some in lots, and so sometimes I'll get sealed games. And I've always been a little unsure or a little unclear on just what the H-seam means and how, because they're repackaging a lot of stuff on eBay now.
Yes.
Yes, they are.
Is there a definitive H-seam that you can always tell? And did they do that on all the games? And it sounds like no. And that's kind of the big questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Can you always tell? I mean, what you would want to do is get as many photographs as you can. So basically, I mean, people, as you said, people are faking sealed NES games. And it used to be for a while, it's like, oh, well, if it has the H seam, which is when you flip it over onto the back, and there's a vertical seam running through the shrink wrap, across the middle of the back. That would be factory sealed. But the problem is people, because there's a lot of money in this, have spent a lot of time and energy faking these. And so you've really got to look for it. It shouldn't be flat and perfect. There should be on the seams a certain amount of bulging. Sometimes the seam on the corners will kind of fold over in a sort of triangular fashion. The best thing for you to do before you buy anything is always look at as many photos of that game sealed as you possibly can and see what it looks like. There's something else too. There's something else that you can do.
All our secrets, man.
I know.
All my faking operation is now.
So if somebody's showing you an NES game and it's sealed. If you open an NES game, if you open any game and fold that flap up, what you're going to do is you're going to remove some of the ink from the crease of the box, basically. So you fold the flap up in the back corner, it's gonna fold in on itself, and some of the ink on the box, especially on black box games, is gonna fall away. So if you look at a game that's been opened, you are gonna be able to see if somebody has actually opened the shrink wrap, opened the game up, a white line going around there. And so compare if you have real sealed games or if you have games that have been opened in your collection, look, because you'll always be able to tell the box has been opened by a line. So look for that. Look for damage or dirt underneath the shrink wrap. There really shouldn't be any specks of dirt or smudges or stuff like that underneath the shrink wrap. But be careful. I mean, I was at we were at
Classic Gaming
No,
Expo.
Classic Gaming Expo or Classic Gaming Expo, and there was a group of dealers who had a lot of they had high end stuff. They were serious about video games, and they had a sealed Super Mario Brothers 3, and I'm like, oh, can I see that? And they hand it over. I'm like, dude, this is resealed, and they're like, oh my god, somebody brought it into our shop and they sold it to us, and I paid them $150 or whatever it was. I'm like, yeah, you got ripped off.
Well, it sounds like for you, when you're buying these lots, you get these sealed games. Is it something where they try to charge you extra because they're sealed, or you just want to know what to do with these?
If I do want to get into sealed stuff, I just wanted to, what he's addressing is how to tell.
Yeah.
That sounds like it's really tricky to do on something like eBay.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
That you can't really see the
You
spec.
can usually, but what a lot of sealed collectors will do is what Chris mentioned. You'll actually call or email them and ask for additional photos. And especially on a high-end item like a sealed thing, they're probably going to go through the extra effort of
taking those pictures for you. If they're like, no, I don't have time to do that, well, then I don't have time to bid on your auction.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say there's concentrated sealed collectors with Nintendo stuff.
Yeah.
And I recommend some of the long-standing people on Nintendo Age for expert advice. If you don't know, there's several people there that know their sealed stuff very well. Now, I'm not a sealed collector, but I know enough if I can look at something whether it's resealed or not. But the best advice I can give is to get advice from an expert, especially one that's not interested in buying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going to get a fair assessment, and the more people you can show, the better answer you're going to get for a determining factor. Now, it's kind of tough if you're going to buy it, but that's my advice. The more people you can share it versus one person. Because if you can show 3 experts versus one person, you're going to get a better answer.
Just make sure it's not like a really good deal on eBay or something, and then you
Right.
show it to the Nintendo Age guys, and they're like, "Hey guys, is this real?" And then they're just gonna buy it. Yeah.
But if you got a good deal on it, then even if it is a resale, you have something that's in at least good shape.
Yeah. Well, then I think the last thing, and this is probably the most controversial part about sealed game collecting, is the video game, the ratings, where they brick. So for those of you that aren't aware, you can slap. It's basically you take a sealed game and you lock it in this acrylic case, and they give it a rating. It's like a 75, an 80, or whatever, and basically grade the condition of that sealed game, and then try to certify it. So there's been a lot of controversy whether or not, who are their experts that are grading these games? Could a fake get through? Someone said, I'm going to make a fake one and see if they grade it. They haven't really proven that yet. But that's one of the other ways that generally if you go through that much effort and you really want to get into sealed game collecting, a lot of people tend to trust those sources.
All right. Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you.
Hey, John, I saw your collection on YouTube, and that's amazing.
Thank you.
Everybody should watch that.
Thank you.
Yeah, John has the most volume, I think, out of all of us up here,
Yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of the huge basement full of stuff.
Yeah.
Very
No, it's a
understanding
garage,
wife.
right?
Very understanding wife. Yeah, I have it all organized in the garage.
Yep.
And,
John,
yeah.
keep the stickers on stuff, right?
yeah, I can talk. You guys want to hear about that?
That's a good question. He said John keeps the stickers on things, right?
Yeah, so I have nothing against sealed collectors. I'm not one. Part of that is I do a series of movies to help fellow collectors out, and I unopen everything and show people what's inside a game. So I have a lot of connection, and I do. We'll start with Atari. There was a period of time, 83, 84, 85, when Atari games, it's the video game crash, North American video game crash, in which the game industry in North America just went. So you have these crazy stickers you find on Atari games, like $2.99, $1.99. I keep all those on there because it's a timestamp. You know, this is a game that was first sale at JCPenney's for $1.99 during that time period. Rental store stickers, I have several from my hometown. It's the only thing that I can identify as like a souvenir from either my childhood, like I rented that game as when I was 10. Or the other reason I keep the rental store stickers on it is because that company's gone. That business is gone. That's the only thing surviving. And I'm okay with it. Yeah, if it marks it up a little bit, who cares? It's like, man, I've never heard of 4-star video from Kentucky. And that's kind of neat. I'll keep that on there. And I take some of them off, and like, if it's really like obstructive and stuff. But for the most part, I would say I keep 95% of the stickers on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny to see where during the crash you see things get discounted,
That's
right?
awesome.
So it's like a $49.99 and there's like a slash through it. It's like $29.99 and they're like free with any purchase. It's
Or
just like,
a bright Toys R Us fluorescent orange sticker.
Yeah.
And I have that on my Castlevania. It's like, I'm keeping that on there.
Yeah,
so-
I kept. I recently just got an acrylic case from from the VGA guys, the ones who slab things. They also sell opened cases that you can just put a game into, and so I got a case for my Earthbound, so I could finally like put it on my shelf without worrying that it was going to get beat up. And as I kind of took it out of the like the bubble wrap that I had it in, and I looked and it had the stickers on it from when I bought it in 1995 as a teenager. From EB Games, and it was like it had a sales sticker on it. I got it for $55, and I remember the day like trading in my copies of like Kirby's Pinball Land and stuff to like get trade credit towards Earthbound, and I was like, oh well, I better take these stickers off. And then I was like, wait a minute, like this is such a part of like, it's like I just remembered this whole elaborate story about how I got this game. It's like I'm leaving these stickers on. Like this is great.
yeah. I mean,
Also,
so
it's funny to have a copy of Earthbound that has like a sale sticker on it.
Yeah, I mean, so I have a box of stadium events, and I kept the price tag on it. It's $10.99. Oh yeah! It's like now it's worth 1,000 times that. That's pretty amazing.
So who else would like to come up and ask a question, show us an item that you've bought here at the show, or looks like no one. Well, wait, I know we have a special guest. I mean, would you like to, you can even advertise your new product.
I can show some stuff.
Come on up.
All right,
Okay.
all right. Let's see.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
People
You probably know more
this
than we do.
is.
So I'm very excited to say a last-minute addition to the last-minute panel, Nintendo's former game master, Mr. Howard Phillips. In fact, we're meeting in person for the first time. I've been emailing about this, but have a seat.
So I brought a couple things. I didn't bring any games. I should have, but I'm
Oh,
putting
you
that on
know.
the website with the,
Yeah.
I've got the prototype parts that I'm
Right.
working on.
Yeah, so it's for some reason, Howard only just recently decided, hey, I got boxes full of stuff in my closet from Nintendo from back in the day. I think I'm just gonna, start pulling this stuff out. He has got prototypes of games that no one even knew were video games.
And
It's great.
one of the coolest flyers of all time.
Oh my gosh.
It's the Now You're Knitting with Power. So, do you want to tell us about how Nintendo decided to get into the fashion
Yeah,
industry?
this was about, I don't know, I'm guessing 89 or something, when we had been successful with the launch of the NES, and they were looking at doing some other things
That's
to
the
kind of
original
extend.
NES flyers as well.
There you go, man. And
Wow.
then the original ABS brochure.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, it's a Nintendo. So when he says ABS, the machine that's actually featured on this flyer is actually on display in New York in the Nintendo World Store, and it looks totally different than the toaster that was released in the U.S.
Yeah, you can see pictures of this. I started up a website when I cracked open the box of our archives. I started up a website, Game Master Howard, on Facebook, and I just have been going through it slowly to show a bunch of different stuff. And I've taken some pretty good scans of this stuff.
And some of this stuff, before you scanned it, I mean, it existed in legend. Like, people were like, oh yeah, there was a whole brochure for the Nintendo Advanced Video System, but nobody had ever seen it before.
Yeah, so the controllers are actually wireless. Was the original plan?
Yep, they had
for
iron
that?
controllers, which were
So
awful.
if the dog walks in front of you,
Yeah,
then you lose
well,
it.
you'd be playing and you go like this, and you hit another button and nothing would happen.
Yeah.
It was awful.
I love the Logan's Run style.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like I'm like just staring at this and not anybody here, but
It's like, you guys, this is so cool. I wish you could see it.
So I got that stuff.
Yeah.
I got the original, Nintendo brochure when they actually this was for the event.
CES, right?
The CES in the winter of '95, and then this was in the summer prior to release. And I was curious, do people care about this stuff? And is it worth anything? I'm not trying to sell it.
Yeah. Well, let's. Yeah, exactly. I mean, as an NES collector, just general Nintendo collector, and especially one who's really interested in paper, things like brochures, this has never come up for sale, ever. So the only time it's ever, some other collectors had talked about having it, or they found it in like a guy who used to work for Toys R Us or something, found it in there, and so it's really hard to say exactly what these are worth. They're really worth whatever someone is willing to pay. Now, I can talk about myself as a collector, and everybody here might freak out when you hear this, like how I would react.
Well, it hasn't been an issue for me because I'm not thinking about selling stuff. Because what I want to do is I want to share it with people, on the web, because it's this lore that we all grew up with. I grew up there. I started there when I was 23 and left when I was 33. So, it's just a kid and played games and had fun with it. And
Is there truth to the story that, as recounted in David Sheff's book, Game Over, that like everybody in Nintendo of America when Donkey Kong first came in was just like, we're dead, company's closing, we can't sell this game. But then what they said was the one saving grace was that the red-haired kid that they hired to work in the warehouse couldn't stop playing it. He loved it.
Yeah, well, so David Sheff embellished for entertainment value a number of things. That said, it was a very small company when I joined. I was just the fifth person on the payroll. It was really just Mr. Arcao and two salespeople, Ron Judy and Al Stone, who had come out of the amusement business, which was pinballs, pull tabs, and then just then starting to see some arcade games. And Ron Judy and Al Stone were seeing all these other games that were, space games and, hardcore boy games and things like that. And they get this game from Japan that's, Donkey Kong, which has got this goofy name. And so for them, it was like, oh, there we go, we're done. They'd seen radar scopes, and radar scopes weren't selling, and then they get this Donkey Kong machine, and it was, had this goofy name and this goofy character and a little plumber guy, and what's so, exciting about a little plumber guy compared to, some spaceship or some, macho type hero. And so they thought all was lost. But that said, the game just rocked, because back then, so many of the arcades games that came out were single screen. And they weren't, the earlier ones weren't Asteroids, etc., weren't color, and so you got this really great color game, and then it had 4 levels, which was like 4 games in one to us back then. You play through that first level, it's like, what, a whole new level, and then there was rumors about, well, if you got to level 4, there's the pie board, Now,
I swear my cousin got to play as Donkey Kong, and you chase Mario around. So all these legendary things.
So to answer your question, that Ron and Al didn't think the game was going to sell.
Okay.
But then it was really the cool thing about Nintendo and about working with Mr. Arcao. It wasn't anything about marketing. It wasn't about what anybody thought. He said, well, let's just try it. Let's put it out on the route, and we'll try it. And one of the things running the warehouse that I did is I'd go around to the 8 or so 7-Elevens and taverns and things. Nintendo had their test games out en route, and I'd just go and count the quarters. And then also lunge with the dip switch settings that back then were very crude, and all we get to do is change like the number of lives or the number of minutes per life or the number of, or a little bit about the difficulty or the number of bullets you had, that sort of thing, for instance, for radar scope. So with Donkey Kong, we just went out there and it just did a little bit of adjustment, and suddenly this thing is pulling in like $150, $175, $200, $250 a week, which back then was golden because the machine would cost you, I think they sold for around $1,900, and as an operator you get half of the money. So if you could get $100 a week, you'd say, well, holy cow, I just do the math for that. I'll be in the money really soon. And then I'm just printing money. So I don't want one or two of these games. I want 1,000 of them because I'll just be making all this money. So it became a huge hit, huge demand for it. We did all the copying, etc.
Yeah.
But anyway, what I was going to say about all this stuff is that, I could offload it to some collector and, go hit the beach for a week or something, but it's really not what is fun about it for me. The fun about it is sharing it with people, and so I found a near-term way to do that, which is just on the web.
Mm-hmm.
But then eventually, once things kind of settle in the industry and there is a true kind of single source, one museum that holds all of it, that has kind of the greatest collection, then that's obviously where they should end up.
Yeah,
Yep.
and so I just like in terms of my philosophy, I'll buy unreleased, undumped prototype games and then dump them, and that immediately kills like a lot of the value a lot of the money that I put in. So undumped. In fact, tonight there's an auction for an undumped NES game. It's Blockout, and it's been released on all kinds of other platforms, but the NES ROM is not out there.
It's not been done.
And so, I'm going to be going after it. A couple other people are going to go after it, but we're going to dump it. And it's kind of like this, where you took great photos, did great scans, and so everybody can see what it is. Obviously, having the real paper in front of you is one of those really interesting.
okay.
Yeah, it's like it's pretty exciting.
This is exactly. Like Steve, again, Steve, as he has said, Steve has a Nintendo World Championships gold cartridge. He has a gray. He has a CIB Stadium events, but he doesn't have that.
Yes, but I don't have this,
and it's driving him crazy.
Yeah, it's like, but this maybe goes to before I talk.
How about, can I just give you a Fun Club news card then? Will that make you happy?
That will make me very happy. This is very cool.
Is that really a Nintendo
It
Fun
is a
Club
Nintendo
News
Fun
era card? That is great.
That's
so
awesome.
great.
So I'm gonna go frame this.
Yeah.
Well, you like paper, so
So maybe backing up a little bit in terms of paper collecting. There is a small group of people who try to collect all the brochures, especially for stuff during like the 70s and 80s, for the stuff for CES or where they were trying to pitch things. A lot of like the technical manuals for the repair centers and things like that. All of that stuff is really fascinating because you learn a lot about these devices, stuff that never got released, or you see changes from when they pitched it to when it actually got released. And so a lot of people are like, like for instance, stuff like this where they show like the box art and everything, sometimes that changes and the text changes. And so you're like, well, there's some like early prototype.
What was it? Was it this one or one of these where they spelled? Yeah, like on this one. So they gave this out to everybody at the Consumer Electronics Show, and this is when Nintendo was just getting started. So this is in summer of '85. And nobody knew Nintendo, and Nintendo is a weird sounding thing. It was Japanese, etc. And so the printer, it's got the Nintendo logo because that was in logo. That was provided to the printer in logo. But then they provided the text, and the text says Nintendo with a T instead of a D on the back of it, because it was just such a a new thing back then that nobody knew Nintendo.
Who's this Nintendo company? I think they made playing cards.
I can't imagine. I'm again thinking about the Nintendo Advanced Video System pamphlet. It's almost like I can't imagine of all of the trade show pamphlets that have ever been handed out at trade shows for video games, one that is more impactful or more important to the video game industry.
Well, it was really
as the
interesting
announcement
because
of
back
that.
then everybody was, so the game systems had come out, but and then Atari crashed, and then everybody said, well, where should we go with all this? And the technology was still increasing, and so it was really moving towards more of the home computer system. And this is before home computers, except for really super expensive ones. And so So they were moving
People thought
toward-
that video games were like a transitional product, and that
Right,
like they were
right.
just a stop
they were
along
toys,
the way.
They were for kids, and then what you really wanted to do is you wanted to buy a home computer system
I want to keep my recipes
that
and
you could
do all my home
that
banking.
you could,
and-
that would justify the expense for it. And so they
Yeah.
went to the show for this and showed all of this. And it turns out that the thing that was the most interesting to everybody was not that they had a keyboard or not that they had this a disk drive for it, etc. The thing that was most interesting, everybody went, "Wait a minute." Those games look like exactly like the games that are in the arcades. That Kung Fu game looks like the Kung Fu game that's in the arcade. And so so they just kind of, again, Arakawa, again, just listening to the marketplace, just shifted on a dime and said, well, we're not going to do all this stuff, even though everybody else is moving towards the kind of computers. They like the games, so let's do the games. And also he had the advantage of knowing that by then in Japan, the Famicom had taken off because of the games, not because of a keyboard or other things.
Right.
Even though they had those available in Japan, it was really all about the games.
What else did you bring here?
So it's still.
Well, yeah. So actually, what I will say, I might as well just throw out numbers here. What the three pamphlets are obviously the CES pamphlet, the original NES pamphlet, and then the Now You're Knitting with Power, which in and of itself is pretty amazing. If it like went up on eBay or something, I would probably snipe at around 5,000. And I know that sounds crazy for how many pieces of paper that is, but I actually have a feeling that it would be all out war amongst Nintendo collectors, and so I would probably be outbid. And it all depends on certain people who may be here, whether or not they heard about it or I like tried to turn off their computer right around the time the auction ended.
No, oh geez, what is all this now?
Yeah, that's what I'm.
All right.
Wait, there's Sega stuff in here.
Yeah, so
Competitive research.
So at the same time, we had the Sega came out, so I collect all the Sega stuff as well. Just run around at the show and say,
Look at John. He's like reaching over me. It's like, give me that Sega stuff.
So the Sega. This is '87, so this is a little bit later than the other Nintendo.
No, it was
stuff.
called the Sega base system, and then they changed it to the Sega Master
Well, I
System.
guess I got two of these.
Two of the games. John's kidney will be up for auction later.
And that way, it was fun. At the trade shows, you obviously we had just this burgeoning business with Nintendo, but it was also fun to go and check out what the other guys were doing. And frankly, this compared to the lunchbox, this is actually a little bit scary. The Zapper, their phaser wasn't. They, for whatever reason, their game, they put this little cursor on the screen. You see it jibbit around. It made it seem just less precise, even though it was accurate.
When you say lunchbox, are you referring to the original, the design of the NES? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, we all call it the
You call it
toaster.
the toaster.
The day it arrived in the warehouse, it was the lunchbox.
The lunchbox.
Okay.
Learn something new.
Yeah,
everybody stop
now we're
calling it the
set.
toaster.
It's called
Start calling it the lunchbox.
Don't call it the lunchbox.
Canon has just been
Yes.
I don't know. That's just,
Yes.
just the way it was. But the thing that, and then they also had some interesting games. And Sega back then was starting to become more of a powerhouse in the arcades. But they were doing really high-end arcades, and they moved on to Hang-On and Riding and Outrun, these big, huge machines that were very expensive. Instead of like an $1,900 Donkey Kong machine, they were making like $5,000 video games that were more like kind of the center of an arcade and amusement. And you couldn't do that on the home system. So actually the arcade business was kind of shooting them in the foot because this didn't play the games in the arcade. And it didn't provide the experience that you could get in the arcade with the ride-on device, etc. But then the other thing that they did that really pushed it was they had to, I think, is that, I just love the D-pad controller. Right? It just, perfect design. And so they put that kind of, that rounder button that was a little less, felt a little less precise for me.
Well,
Because you guys patented the
D-pad. So really, they didn't have much choice.
Yeah, I love it. It's my
nice.
fun.
Very
It's
nice.
just fun thing. And then, other stuff. This is the press kit from the Power World Championship Power Fest, which is kind of fun.
I might be in this book.
There's all the books from that.
Yeah.
So I feel sorry because I didn't bring any games. but you just have to wait a little bit on that. I'm working on it, but they're up on the.
Yeah, so if you haven't looked at Howard's Facebook page, I highly recommend that you
Yeah,
find
Game
it.
Master Howard.
Yeah,
right,
Game
is the
Master
page.
Howard Facebook page, because he's like, hey, check this out, and it's a picture of all these prototype games, and everyone's like, please plug that into a system and tell us what's in there. And then you did that, and it's games that have never been released and never
Yeah.
seen.
I remember something that amused me on your Facebook. You had all the prototype games, and then you said, I don't think I have an SNES to.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's interesting. So I'm an old guy. I left in '91, and the SNES was just coming to market then. And so for me, I'd seen this huge kind of mountain of life around the NES. And then when the SNES came out, it was cool, right? But it was actually a little bit diluted for me. It was more sparkly and things compared to the simplicity of the really great NES games. I'm not saying it wasn't great fun gaming, it's just that's kind of the way it impacted me. But the NES that I have is my original NES that I played all the games with. The one that I got in mid '85. I've still got that NES, and my Game Boy is the first Game Boy that I got that I've still got. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So I want to absolutely make sure while you're up here that we talk about your latest project
Okay.
to everybody. So Howard, if you don't know, is actually he's got a Kickstarter going on right now. It's called it's for an iOS app, a learning game called Game Master Howard's Know It All. Is that the official title? Or just Know It All?
No, that's it. That's
Okay.
it. Yeah. So over the years, I love games. Been making games for years. Made over 150, 167 counting games. The last game I did was iOS Game of the Year, Infinity Blade. But I've always really been fascinated with kind of the deeper things associated with games. And one of those is that games are great for learning stuff and kind of knowing stuff. And we all think about all the stuff, all the information we know about games that we really didn't study and focus and say, okay, I've got to remember this, flashcard style or something like that. We just remembered it. And so I thought about that hard, and had been over the last, say, 10 years, been working on a number of different pseudo-educational games, and came up with this one idea that I think really works. And it turns out that it's backed up with recent findings in neuroscience that say we actually have two memory systems. One is this conscious, effortful one that we've been banged on our head in school for all these years. Well, it turns out there's a second one. And it's called the habit learning or automatic learning, and it doesn't require your conscious effort to employ. It just happens. If I say 7 times 7, most of your brains just say 49. You don't go somewhere and retrieve it consciously. It's just there. And if I say how do you run faster in Mario Brothers, most of you just do it. Your brain just tells you how to do it. And the same thing can be employed in a game, and so that's what I'm doing. With the Know It All game, and I have a Kickstarter for it. It'd be great if you guys could check it out if you like it, think it's interesting. It's kind of retro gaming style, classic, simple, fun, a la Tetris, something like that. If you like it, back the project, but especially if you like it, tell your friends, please, because that's most important, because that's how Kickstarter works. But I have a question for you guys.
Yes.
So I'm walking around the show, there's all this great stuff.
Yep.
I mean, really great stuff. And I'm thinking, gee, maybe I wonder if there's anything I can do that, well, not this stuff, but is there anything I can do with something out there that throw in the auction tonight to just give to charity or whatever that would be of value to people?
Anything that you've showed us?
I mean, I suppose when I've got a duplicate of something, I mean,
if you have duplicates of things, I think that,
okay.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is something you actually mentioned earlier was, and this is something that I've done, I'm really in close talks with the guys who are starting up the Video Game History Museum, and a lot of my collection will actually go to them. Definitely before I die, but as soon as they kind of get
right before you die.
Right, but yeah, like, the dying breath will be like, take fire. No, once I get things up and running, it's kind of like what you see in museums now. It's like on loan from, but in this case, I would just donate it. And things like this, a lot of you are collecting. Some of you might come across things that are one of a kind. And yes, there's some that you devalue something by dumping a prototype if you happen to find it or whatever. But also keep in mind that it doesn't do anybody any good sitting in your closet. So do what you can to at least get it out there, get it exposed, or at least at the very, very least get it dumped and archived, so that if you have a house fire or something horrible happens, there's some archive of what's going on. So I think yeah, exactly. And so I think that's the big thing. Is just even sharing with us, like putting things out on Facebook. It just there's all kinds of history in there, and we just want to get it out.
So I've got an early version of Know It All, of Howard's the app that he's trying to get kickstarted on my phone. So it's an early version. It is early, but I'll give you a guided demo of why it's so cool. If you come by the Try and Save booth, we're behind where Ianoid and Billy Galaxy are on the show floor. We're like right behind them, behind the curtain. So come by and I'll show it to you if you're interested.
Can I say one more thing? And that's that
You can.
it's really fun for me to come to events like this because you guys all share the fun, positive, happy memories of playing with your buddies and sharing tips with each other and being stuck in the same place and then hearing some rumor and making it pass. It was the same way for me, and we all share that. So it's great to get a chance to talk to you.
I guess people have questions for you.
Yeah. Sorry, we just monopolizing the time. Go ahead.
So today I just bought a copy of The Wizard on VHS.
Yeah.
And,
From Korea, right?
from Korea.
Yes. That looks awesome, by the way.
What?
That looks awesome. That's a good pickup.
I hope it's in Korean.
Yeah.
What is Korean for "he touched my breasts"? You're gonna find out.
But I'm wondering, you worked there in a way to time, how much, because it's basically a 90-minute infomercial, did you guys have a lot of, were you on the movies, were people there on the movie set?
Yeah, there's one guy, Don James, who is a good friend of mine, was really spearheaded the support for the script and for the filming and et cetera, and he went to the set and things. I didn't. I was more focused on the games, and at that time, actually, Nintendo was kind of going like I don't know how to do it. It was going like this, and more stuff was going in. Games were being worked on, but then kind of more was going into marketing. We started seeing more stuff come out that was more marketing focused, not game focused. And I stuck with the games, didn't spend time. Though people accuse me of being, like a shill or a spokesperson or something, and I wasn't. I was just, I was the guy when they'd say, is this a good game or not? Because we started getting inundated with games and they didn't want to have, a repeat of the Atari. I would say, well, yeah, it's okay, or this one's really good, or this one's great. We should do, like a big spread Nintendo Power because it's so much fun. And this one, we should ask the publisher or developer to, make a different game instead, and so that was what it was all about, for me at least, was all about the game stuff. So, hiring a guy from Colgate, the toothpaste company, to do marketing, and all this kind of, oh boy, we're Nintendo stuff just really wasn't interesting to me, because it was, what was really fun is, back then was the game. Of course, in hindsight, I walk out there and see all the great little tchotchkes, and I go, oh yeah, I remember that when that came out. So it's really fun that it's still around today.
I have the Nintendo cereal system.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna eat that cereal. It's like, why do I have a box of cereal that's like 30 years old? Collector.
Anyway, thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah,
thank you very
Howard,
much.
thank you for coming up here, making a last minute trip. Round of applause for this.
All right.
Okay, tough act to follow, but who would like to
I
come
think,
up now and talk about stuff?
We got a couple minutes.
A few minutes?
Yeah.
Surely, okay, show of hands, who's bought something on the show floor so far? Who among you would like to come and tell us what you bought? Just whatever. Yeah, you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for leaving
No,
your
that-
hand up. I meant that guy, but, But you can come up second.
Yeah.
I-
He's double
nice.
fisted. Look at this.
It's very casual.
Yeah. Some good deals on the floor, by the way.
There are good deals on the floor. Maybe not anymore, but...
Yeah, I know.
Hi, so I'm Michael. I'm from
a few blocks around here.
Okay.
All right.
Do you live in the convention center like that other guy?
No.
Oh,
He said a few blocks, so he's at like the Red Lion or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
pretty close.
burger place.
So I tend to collect retro games that I want to play that I've heard about, maybe never got a chance. I'm not really into the sealed stuff or anything. And I have a boyfriend who's a few years younger than me and never got into this stuff. So I like to share that stuff with him. And I like to I like to troll him, basically, because he doesn't know it's coming.
Oh no. Yes.
So what did I get? I got Street Fighter, the movie, the game.
Nice.
Captain Sawada is the best character. Never
Have to
in
play it
Tokyo.
after watching the movie.
Yeah, he'll see that one coming.
Wait,
What'd you pay, $6 for that?
Have you
That's pretty good.
actually, have you two seen Street Fighter the movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh,
he'll
all
see
right.
that one coming.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
It's better when you watch it.
Yes.
They did that to, I think when Ming Na went on like Conan O'Brien, this is many years ago, for some other show she was doing. Conan was just like, oh, we have a clip of your past work. And they played a clip of the video game.
Video game.
Yeah, of the
Oh,
video
excellent.
games. Yes.
That's even better.
and I was able to get some Golgo 13 games.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I have no idea why these came out over here, but
Because they're awesome.
well, yeah, but
And even with the edited sex scene.
yeah,
Awesome.
I think that's gonna be pretty good. I got Space Jam for the Saturn.
All right. You know what? Do I have the Space Jam theme on my phone?
Battle Arena Toshinden. This is good.
Is it good? Is
Okay.
Battle Arena Toshinden
Now-
remix for the Saturn good? People are shaking their heads.
No.
No,
We got a thumbs
okay.
down.
So I will say,
PlayStation.
the first time you ever saw Battle Area Toshinden, like at that E3, it was like, this is the future. It's like, I'm in 3D, and they got swords, and then you play it for more than 2-3 minutes, and yeah.
It was a game that like this game pushes this many polygons. It was a polygon count game pretty much. Hey, it's a 3D fighting game. Look what this, and I would say it's probably more popular on like PlayStation.
Mhm.
It was definitely like PlayStation launch game. Look what we could do. Bam.
Great. That's exactly what I'm looking
Okay.
for.
Excellent. Good job. Good job all around.
All right.
All right. So
Thank you very much.
You're our last. You're going to be our last guest. Thank you all again
And he's
for
gonna-
for coming in.
Yeah.
Come on up.
So, party time playing crappy fighting games at that guy's house.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You're a good guy.
I'm Joshua Smith, and I'm from Portland.
All right.
I'm in a lot of like just weird Dreamcast stuff laying around still, and so my wife we've moved 4 times and had to drag this along with her. And so I'm wondering if I have a pretty mint condition someday Amigo Morocco controller.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
So I was just wondering, is that worth anything?
Yes.
Yes.
Very limited release.
Especially in
and-
the U.S.
Yeah,
right?
in the U.S.
Are they
extreme-
Japanese or are they
They're
American?
U.S.
Okay,
It was
good,
like
good.
$5 at GameStop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this is before we were inundated with plastic guitars and skateboards and all kinds of other stuff. So an accessory.
People were like,
that-
I'll
An
never get tired
excellent
of these.
New Year's Eve
Yeah.
party game.
Yeah. They actually they almost never go up for sale, and most of the time when you see them on eBay, they're the Chinese knockoff or
Yes.
like the Japanese version. So the U.S. version is definitely a crazier thing. I don't know, John, if you've seen a recent sale. I mean, I saw one at like 150, 200.
Yeah, they're definitely the yellow box, because there's a knockoff box,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of those kind of floating around. You never find them in great shape. I mean, it's a ginormous box, and it's weird to
Do
have.
people know what Samba de Mio is? Just okay, all right. So just want to make sure. So
Okay.
there's definitely folks who are like, I understand, maracas.
It's fantastic game. And this is like typical Sega games. Like, what the heck is that? And then you play it, and it's like, all right, that's fun.
Yeah. So that's definitely one of those boxes you want to keep dragging around with you.
Oh, very nice.
And just in general, like the Dreamcast, there's a lot of the fighting games, some of the shooters that have gone up in value, and that
Yeah,
game
Dreamcast. There's very few games released in the U.S. for the Dreamcast, so it makes people think, oh, I can't complete my NES collection, but maybe I'll try to go for a complete Dreamcast collection. And so as soon as multiple people start getting that into their heads, that's when the value of stuff starts going up because it starts coming off of the market.
Yeah, and then the last thing is there was a lot of piracy, obviously, for the Dreamcast. So because everyone here pirated a Dreamcast game, but near the end, the print runs for a lot of those discs got smaller and smaller because they're like, well, we're going to sell to the hardcore, and then it's going to be a 0-day release on some download site. So especially some of the late releases stuff, and then the rarest is probably Sonic Limited Edition, which came with the Hollywood video rental that was a couple months prior to the actual.
$7,999.
Yeah.
And with the dream, you know, you could rent the system and it didn't have the modem. The modem wasn't ready yet, so they had a plastic shell in it. And sometimes you can find these Dreamcast systems and it doesn't have the modem. And people are like, "What the heck is that?" Well, the modem wasn't ready and it was only available at that rental store.
Yeah, Hollywood Video. So yeah, but definitely a good purchase.
Oh,
and
excellent.
Hang on to it.
Okay, well,
So-
thank you so
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
for coming up and telling us about it. Thank you guys for coming. One more round of applause for our panelists. John Hancock didn't get to say a whole lot. I think he's just happy to be here. Steve Lynn, who, I mean, Steve mentioned this, but Steve is about to go and blow a whole bunch of money so that he can get an unreleased prototype and then immediately dump it, thus losing all that money so that you can play this game.
And thanks for our MC Chris Kohler. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming out, and have a good show.
All right. Thanks, John.
No, thank you.
Always good to have Sega knowledge. Oh, gotta represent, right? Yeah.